So the tomatoes are doing so-so this year. We moved them over about a foot or so from where we had them last year. And last year I had run 2 stalks up from the ground. This year I wanted to save a little time, so I just pruned to 1 stalk. And so essentially you get a little bit less earlier fruit, and then once they get above the cattle panels, I just kind of let them go and try and manage them a little bit, you know, keep them from falling off. I don't know per se, you know, how much more fruit we'll get up there, but, you know, for the 2 of us, we get more than we can eat, so it doesn't really matter. And the reason why, you know, okay, why do you plant so many? Well, because you want to try some different varieties, and sometimes you're going to have maybe 1 plant die. Well, if you only planted 1, you don't even get to taste it. So then so you essentially plant 2 of everything you want to try. And that's kind of how you have success. It's like, try, you know, grow more than you need. People say grow 7 times what your family can eat, essentially. And it doesn't really go to waste. It can go to compost, and then you can bring it back. So you're actually growing more soil. It's not really that bad. It's not a bad thing.
Now you made these, looks like with fencing and then cattle panels on it?
So the tubing is made from chain link fencing, just something you can get at Home Depot. You can't get everything at Home Depot. These T-clamps, you'll have to find them another place. You can get these at Home Depot, but and then it's like, okay, you essentially have to cut things to length. You're most likely going to find 6-foot pieces of this material at Home Depot, and so you're not going to find a full length section. So you're going to have to piece them together to get to the 16 feet, because the cattle panel is 16 feet long. And this front edge is around 2 feet tall, and the back is around 5 feet tall. And I think somewhere in the middle would be better. So like 2.5, somewhere here, because this is quite tall, and it takes a long time for these plants to actually get up here. But being that this is shorter, you actually have to get under here to pick. So probably another foot for your head when you're crawling under the backside would be ideal. And originally we had set these up aimed toward the sun like solar panels, you know, like this. And we found that with our summer heat, everything got burnt. So they actually provide a little shade and a little bit less direct sunlight. Now, since we only ran 1 stalk up here, there's not enough leaves to actually protect everything from the sun scald or sunburn. So some of our tomatoes did get burnt. And
while the plants are still small or just planted, do you like run a string or something up so they can climb up that, or do you just kind of...
So nothing climbs. Nothing, I mean, even cucumbers, they don't really climb. Tomatoes don't climb. So I tie a string right here, and this string I tie to the base of the plant. I don't tie the string, I use 2-it ties. There's a company in Australia that makes them. I get them at the local vineyard, Orchard Supply. But I use these to tie up pretty much anything that needs tied up around here. So you buy them in fairly big bags. And so when you want some, you can just tie it on. So let's say I could tie it on, like I could tie this tomato plant right here to that, and it would stay. But sometimes when I'm tying something up, I don't necessarily want to tie it on that way. And after a while, you figure out, well, what's going to be the easiest to untie. And so if I want to stretch this over here, it's kind of like a little elastic band. So I can get it to go this direction, and then it's fairly reasonably easy to remove this when I want to. But that's essentially how I get things to go up. So I'll tie the tops onto things and stretch it up. That way I get straighter stuff instead of things falling all over the place. And then when you go to remove it, not a real big deal. You just put it back on your wrist, take it off the plant, and then when you don't need them, just grab a hold of this and put it back there. So
That looks pretty easy.
yeah, and they're reusable. You know, yeah, the sun, you know, kind of takes a toll on them.
Will it? That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, you can get, I don't know, 3 years out of them depending. And a lot of times I don't like to use the ones that I've used on tomatoes again, because tomatoes are just pretty finicky. They're kind of hard to grow and they can get diseases easy. So let's say if I had a plant that was sick, then I may be hanging that or plant with that same thing in it, and it could possibly spread disease. So I'll use it on cucumbers and grapes and what have you. And we can go, if we need to extend it, we can add another one. And I always like to tie, say, below a leaf or something like that. You don't want to necessarily tie right on your flowers, because it can move around there and yank them off. Sometimes I get a little too much tension. And then another thing, so sometimes these will slip off. So what we can do is we just wrap that around, and that just, essentially you're creating a friction point, just like with rope tying. You don't necessarily have to have it tied solid into a knot.
Hey, can you talk about your, what are these, misters?
So most of your sprinklers for plants shoot out. These are actually designed for pots, and so they shoot down, and you can get different flow rates. If you'd like, I'll fire it up so you can see what they look like.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see that they shoot down instead of out, and so it gets less water on the leaves, and tomato plants don't really do super good with water all over the leaves. So I think it helps a little bit with that, and you just pull it up if you want it to go a little farther, or you can push it down back into the ground if you want the circle to be smaller.
And you have to use what, like 1.5 feet, 2 feet apart? Or just one for every plant?
Essentially one for every plant, or one in every gap. That's about what I did. So, and they put a lot of water out. I mean, you can see I watered yesterday, and we have a swamp here. So it definitely waters the ground here pretty well.
What are these? The
Tomatoes?
Those are tomatoes?
Yeah. So this is, you know, this is kind of what happens when you just let your plants sprawl all over the place.
Just let nature do its thing.
Yep. So they produce. I guess this is how they would do it in nature. And sometimes you'll see, yeah, right here. This is rooted in. So they'll make roots.
They'll root themselves?
Yep.
Like strawberries?
Yep. You want to zoom up here?
He's already on it.
Okay, so when I go to pull it out, You can see the roots.
Nice. And all tomatoes will do that?
Yep. Yep, that's what they do. They spread out.
So can I cut that like strawberries and then go and transplant it somewhere else easy enough?
You can. The problem is, if you, we don't live in the tropics, and if you did, it'd probably work out great. But by the time it actually produces enough root system, your season's over here. So we hadn't grown tomatoes here for about 3 years because the soil was done with tomatoes. And we grew some tomatoes over on the next row last year, and they did all right. But, you know, obviously this is a different type of a trellis system, and we have a little bit of some sort of disease going on with this particular plant. So, don't know exactly what's going on, but no matter. That's why we have more.
Well, that's all I have for this video. Bang around that bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos come out. Call us on the hotline if you have comments or questions and want to be featured in an upcoming video. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe. Check us out on the website, and we'll see you guys on the next one.